Definitely not a typical December. One minute I'm sitting there and it's feeling like about 70 degrees right here in the middle of Durham, North Carolina. And the next minute I'm sitting here and it's feeling like it's around 50 or so. But you've got some folks that don't think that global warming really exists. And you have to wonder what they've been thinking about if they've been watching the weather over the last several years. So that's some of the things that are going on in this part of the world, and definitely something that I've been noticing. Also had a chance to get out and about, and of course, seeing most of the folks either not wearing masks because they are, I assume, vaccinated, or there's a lot of folks did have the mask on and we're still staying protected in that way. I know if you jump on a bus, you definitely have to wear a mask because the bus drivers are going to make sure that you have it on one way or the other. So that's something else that's going on. And of course, we are in the middle of December, which means that we're in the middle of a lot of people thinking about the bowls in terms of football, and also thinking about the wind down of the NFL season. And none of my teams are doing all that well. The Carolina Panthers aren't doing that well. I'm a lifelong Vikings fan, and they are not doing that well. But I've been following in that same tradition because I've been doing fantasy football for over a decade now. And once again, my team is doing very bad. That's right. I'll be playing in the Sucker Bowl, and I'll just have to get over that and just have to realize that that's something that happens in life sometimes. And of course, it's been fun catching some of the things going on in the entertainment space. I saw that, I believe it was Rihanna that got named as and I want to say she got a title, like maybe she even got a queen title or something like that from her original home of Barbados. So they were offering her that and everything. And then I had also seen a Latin American artist, I believe it was Shakira, that was getting a lot of attention because she had gone somewhere and decided to have a refreshing glass of lemonade. And while she was having that refreshing glass of lemonade, she was also showing that even though she may have put on some age in terms of years, she has not lost that beauty significance and that whole beauty that she's had for decades. And a lot of people were praising her for that on social media, be it Instagram, be it Facebook, or whatever. And no matter what you think about Tom Brady, you've got to admire his wife, who apparently rescued a sea turtle. And that was also on social media big time as well. And I know my dad probably appreciated that, even though I haven't talked to him about that in recent times. I need to give him a call and find out what he thought about that, because he is a big fan of turtles. He's even had a large land tortoise at one time or another, until that land tortoise passed away. And that land tortoise lived in Dad's backyard in a doghouse. That's right. That's where Buttercup hung out at. And he's had other turtles, everything from little small turtles to some that are more the size of boxers, to a number of other types as well. And definitely has always had an affinity for turtles, as well as an affinity for art, as well as he is a well-known artist here in our North Carolina area, and particularly here in the Durham area. So that's just some of the things that are going on in my world. But I'm going to bring on my guest, who I met through another friend of ours, none other than Fernando. And Fernando had told me about Oliver and the amazing things that Oliver was doing, including doing some writing and being creative in his own right. So I'd love to hear more about what this project is that he's got going on, and more about this wonderful individual named Oliver. So I want to check out what he's got going on and what some of the things are that are happening in his life, and how he just coping in general. So how are you doing, Oliver? Glad to have you here. Glad that you're able to join me in this conversation and everything. Like I said, Fernando had told me about you, about this, I believe it's a children's book that you got going on, but a number of other things that you were just doing in general. So I know folks are probably like, wow, they're just having way too much fun, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. So I was just wondering, have you always been there on the West Coast? And exactly a little bit about your own history. I know Fernando shared some, and of course, we talked a little bit on LinkedIn and stuff like that. But I'm sure our fans that are all over the world, because we have about 150 countries that we're in, and then of course, listeners in all 50 states, be that through LinkedIn, the Facebook, YouTube, and a number of resources. We're even looking at Instagram and Reddit and some other distribution points as well. So if you tell our folks a little bit about you, I'm sure that they would love to know more about who Oliver is.
Hey, Mark, thanks for having me, first of all. I enjoy this platform already. I really enjoy it. I'm West Coast, partner, West Coast.
Right.
Grew up in East Oakland, California, and grandmother's in San Francisco. So I'm back and forth from Oakland, San Francisco, and Berkeley. So that's where I grew up. Uh, then I went to the Air Force, and Air Force, African American, loves warm weather. Where they send them? To Cheyenne, Wyoming.
Wow.
I sent to Cheyenne, Wyoming, to the snow for a few years. Then after that, went back to California. Then I decided to go to college. Well, I started college when I was in Cheyenne, but I wanted to go 4-year college. So I went to Xavier in New Orleans.
Okay.
And so that's where I did undergraduate major in political science and business. And from there, like I wanted to teach for a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
I taught for a couple years, middle school. And I'd say it was a couple years. I did it. After that, I was like, I'm going to do something new. And a friend of mine was starting a startup, had a startup company. Hey, Oliver, come join us. Like, we don't know what you want to do. I want to do with you, but come join us. And because there's 2 engineers, so they needed somebody else with a little flavor, what have you. But I found out that I was helping them with marketing and advertising, and I ended up really liking marketing and advertising. Like, hey, this is the world I want to be in. So as startups go, it didn't go as far as they had hoped. And went back to the Bay Area. I went to Arizona to do that for about 8 months or so.
Okay.
Went back to the Bay Area. And my aunt's a nurse. She's like, Oliver, what you up to? I'm like, little this, little that. You know how we do it. She's like, no, Oliver, what are you really up to? I said, I read Wall Street Journal every day, the advertising section.
Mm-hmm.
And I was interested in advertising. I don't know how I'm going to get it, but I'm interested in advertising. And she said, I just met a woman at the basketball game the other day who said she can't find African-American men to hire for advertising.
Oh, wow.
And for some reason, I thought of you, and I kept her card. As of course, I called, I followed up, got an interview, and then called again, got an interview, and was accepted. It was really amazing because it was an African American advertising agency in Oakland, California, and the CEO was Carol Williams.
Oh, wow.
Carol Williams made Strong Enough for a Man, but Made for a Woman.
Mm-hmm.
That's her. And Have You Driven a Ford Lady? That's her. And so that's when she was in General Market Agency. And then from the General Market Agency, she started her own business there in California, with Clorox being her first client. So that's it. Then from there, I went to advertising. And at first, they didn't know because in my pitch, I gave them business ideas and marketing ideas. Creative. They didn't know where to put me. So they ended up putting me in as an account executive in advertising. So just managing the projects. Yeah. So that's what got me into the creative world.
Wow. Do you think that we're doing enough in terms of advertising for advertising that's got a diverse viewpoint? Because I know even sometimes when I watch advertising now, it's very much seems to be geared toward middle America, which can be a very white viewpoint. And in some cases, it might even be a white woman viewpoint, depending on who they're trying to target and everything along those lines. I do know that I do see more people of color in the advertising, but I'm not sure that we're targeted as much as the amount of money that we spend, because we do know that we spend a significant amount of the money that we bring into going into commercial shops and commercial places and things of that nature. I've heard that sometimes we spend more going out than we do actually bringing in. So we definitely spend maybe even more than we actually earn in the sense of where our money goes. And definitely a lot of it doesn't even go into our own neighborhoods and our own businesses. But I was just wondering your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think the advertising, and perhaps is where you are, but the advertising is pretty diverse now. Okay. I see a lot more African-American males and mixed males, what have you. But the main thing is we're not getting the money. So, right, as you know, we are the fuel. African-American culture, soul, whatever, we fuel everything.
Right.
And so we kind of let that go. So what happened was, well, you probably know in the radio station, the word urban, right? We get the African-American market, and then we got greedy and said we could do Latinos as well. And then that's called urban. Mm-hmm. And then once it became urban, then white people could do it and say, oh, we're just doing urban advertising. So the urban grew in the advertising, the big agencies, and it's African-American specific agencies that went down. And I see that in radio as well.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, we do see that in everything. Other thing that I was just thinking about as you were talking was I had it wasn't on my show, it was actually on Billy Graham's show, which is another show that airs here. And he had a gentleman that had spent part of his time, and I think he's supposed to be in the process of moving in Idaho, and you mentioned having spent some Air Force time in Wyoming, and I'm thinking to myself, ain't that many black folks in Idaho? Probably not that many in Wyoming. So, what was that
Yeah.
experience like, and how much of a culture shock was it for you? Because I'm thinking that probably a lot of cowboys, probably a lot of Western uh, mentality, and probably a lot of open frontier. But I'm not thinking that there were that many of us out in Wyoming. If I'm wrong, please let me know. But even in places like Cheyenne, I'm not thinking there are going to be a lot of us there.
No, we was all on the base, and it's probably a blessing in disguise because I wanted to go to Italy, I wanted to travel the world, but I was stuck in the snow. So I did two things. I hooped every day, went to the gym and hoop, and then me and one of my friends went to college and started taking college courses.
Okay.
So if I was going to Italy with all these other stuff, I would have been too excited to do that. So since I sit down and have anything else to do, I started going to college. They have Frontier Days, so that's with like Mardi Gras, but for cowboys.
Right.
So that's a big week out there. So I went to that like once just to check it out to see what's going on, but it just wasn't for me. Usually, to deal with African Americans, it was the weekend. Weekend, we get in the car, go to Denver, party, and then come back to our world. So we got a taste of reality. But in the winter out there's not too much driving out there in winter. So most of the time we're stuck in Wyoming playing basketball, or I read a lot back then as well.
Gotcha. Who was
But going to the frontier, just stereotypes of what you think it was. We went through that. We were sitting in a restaurant that's kind of like Cheers. Everybody knows your name, and I was sitting there. I never go out. I only go out to dance. I'm not one to go out, sit, and just talk. But it was somebody's birthday, and I went out there. Okay. I go out there, and it's a Latino guy, and we went to the Cheers, and this white dude come in looking like he almost got beat up, and he's like, "Oh, you gotta save me! You gotta save me! They almost beat me up." And my Latino friend's like, "Oh, let's go see about it." I'm like, "Well, that's his business. That's not my business."
Right.
And then so no, we gotta go. So we went, and so we went out to Cheers bar to a cowboy bar. He went in there just like it's the boots and everything. And the Latino guys start talking crazy. And they start fighting. So it's a big old riot. Right there, wrong place, wrong time. But I had a fun. The guys, I'm from Oakland. Nobody's shooting anybody. So just little punches and everything. But it's this culture. Like, I'm not going to follow a Latino guy mad to that was my wrong. Following to a cowboy bar.
You had to go step into that cowboy bar and get into one of them. What was it, like Eddie Murphy or one of them kind of situations where
Exactly.
you see like, I do not need to be in this particular environment. I'm in the wrong environment. Tell me a little bit about Cougar Sims Productions, because I know that that's your company and it's been going on for a while. So I'd love to hear more about what it's all about and when you decided to launch it. Because, like I said, if you looked at the LinkedIn profile, it's not a new company, but it's one that you've had on your mind for a while and you've been doing it for a while. So how did you go about creating Cougar Sims?
Well, initially, like I told you, I was blessed to work at Carrie H. Williams Advertising. And when I was there, I was account executive. And so account executive, manage the products, make sure the creators do what they want to do. But basically, we're in charge of the budget. And we had the budget come down for 2 commercials. And it was like $300,000. They're going to do 2 commercials. So weekend worth of work, 2 commercials. And I'm looking at every line item. And I saw the production company made 30% of it. Like, they're going to make about $100,000 for a weekend worth of work. So, like, this is amazing. That sounds like good business. So, again, it was African American ad agency. We're working on Maxima was their client, and we're going to do a commercial for them. So we go out to do the commercial, and I'm like, I want to be part of this business. So I started asking people what they do. So I'm the cinematographer. I know what the lenses are. I know what the lens is going to get the director what he wants. I'm like, what's the director do? I talk to the director. I'm the one to capture the story. And all that stuff's over my head. I'm the grip. Then one person said, I'm the producer. I'm like, well, what do you do? I make sure the people on the time. I make sure the thing moves along as it's supposed to. I make sure that they stay on budget. I'm like, well, shoot, that's what I'm doing in the ad agency. So I just basically grabbed her and hugged her and followed her around all day to learn as much as I can about it. As I was there, I was like, wait a minute. We just got this money from Maxima to do this commercial for African American market, and they got African American actor, but no one else was African
Right.
American. So you got 40 people crew coming down, get paid to do an African American commercial, and no one else was getting that. And so at that point, I was like, I definitely like there's a market for me here. So within the next couple of weeks, I told a friend of mine, told a couple of friends, like I'm doing this, start meeting with people. And one friend had the fashion show called The Magic, and he was gonna do something like, yo, I'll do a commercial for you. So he said he's gonna pay me $5,000. I was like, great. And I found a team to make it happen. Of course, he didn't have the $5,000. I ended up paying for half of it myself, but it made me get a reel, something I could do. That proved to myself that I could do it. So I made that happen. Told Carol, Miss Williams, like I'm out. I'm doing this advertising, this production company. She's like, no, you can't leave me. I'm like, yeah, I can leave you. I gotta do it. She's like, no, I need you to stay for at least another month because I need your vision. I need you to you're important to this account. So I need to pass off to the next person. So I stayed for another month. Then ended up getting going out networking, got a couple music videos, and start producing music videos. And then after I left, I came back to her because she's the new person that came. And he's like, hey, Oliver, I just want you to download what you know to this person about the Maxima account. Great, because I was really good at Maxima. I met the head of Nissan North America. He was in a focus group and he heard my insights like, yo, we want to talk to you often. So I had a good relationship with them. So after that, I went to the agency, and Carol walked by me and she's talking to herself out loud. We just got this census commercial. No money, no time. How are we gonna do this? And I'm like, well, my team could do it. Like, you just started. What do you mean? I'm like, my team could do it. And she said, well, I'll let you put a bid in. Right? If the creative team likes your bid, then you're in. Like, okay. So and the bid and creative as well. So I went and found my director, and the director gave me his reel, and I gave his stuff. I sent it to the team, and I put my budget together. I found somebody to help me put the budget together, and I put it in, and they liked it, and they like, great, let's go with you. But your bid is real low. Is that a union crew? I said, no, it's not a union crew. Like, yeah, we can't use you if it's not a union crew. But thank you anyway. Like, wait a minute. Give me 24 hours. Let me make it a union crew. They said, okay. So in our area, the union is in San Francisco. So I made an appointment with the union the next day. And I told them that I got this project. I want to make this happen. Let's make it happen. They saw the budget like, oh, that budget's low. I'm like, yeah, but this is the bid I put in to win. Like, we don't know about that. I'm like, look, I'm local. If this happens, we're gonna get a lot of work here. We can make this happen together. And they're like, okay, great. We'll give you a temporary union deal. We'll bring our rates down for this project only, and we'll make that happen. And then I was like, okay, well, great. But I don't want no chumps. I want you champs. Like, we're a union. We're all good. Like, no, you get everybody in the room. Everybody's not a champ. I want your best people. They're like, okay, great. So we did that. Went back to the agency and showed them the bid. They're like, Oliver, we told you we need a union crew. And I showed them paperwork with the union. Like, this isn't a union crew. And so that's where I got my first commercials, doing census commercials throughout the thing. And then on set, I'm talking to the sound guy. And I'm like, what other projects have you worked on? Oh, I worked on The English Patient. Okay, like, very good. We got those top people. So that's what I got into. I did commercials and urban advertising, African American advertising, and so that's my start. And then from there, I had a friend who knew me as I already had my commercial company doing that. He said, Oliver, you got to talk to the Brothers Brewing Company, and I don't even drink beer. He's like, but you got to go talk to him. Like, okay, and he's a marketing guy himself, and he talked to me the day before, and I went and talked to him. The guy's like, why do I need to talk to you? And this guy that I met with, Michael LeBlanc, he had graduated from Duke and the first African CEO from Kodak.
Okay.
And so he's like, he knew it. Stuff like, well, why would I talk to you? I just talked to your friend yesterday. So he told me about his brand. I'm like, oh, this is great. You got great Neo Soul brand, African American brand with the app with the different brands, whatever. He had like Corona stuff. I can't even think of Lager now. I can't think Lager now.
Lager, right?
Lager and Amber. Like, this was going on, boom. So I like, yo, if I was you, I'd do this for the campaign. I do this, and I, that's well, great meeting you. So that was good. It was just, we just vibed and next day they called me like, hey, we want to hire you. I'm like, well, I've got my own production company. We're gonna give you this kind of money, and you can still do your own commercials. And so that's what I end up doing.
Wow.
So I worked with them for a few years, and with them, I end up selling beer. I sold some of the biggest counts, and I took Sierra Nevada. There's a big count here in Oakland. I took the biggest count in California, and I got all places in Oakland, San Francisco. I got all those counts. I bought media for them, produced 2 commercials, ran the commercials, and what was amazing about the commercial is I bought time on cable, and I was focused. I bought it during the playoffs. So everybody in Oakland seeing the game in playoffs, they think it's a national brand, but we're just there at Oakland, and so that's where I got my start.
Now, one thing I noticed in all of these stories is that, which is a testament to you and everything, is that a lot of times people get intimidated before they go into even trying to do anything. Whereas it seems like if you have something on your mind and you think it's worthwhile, you dive headfirst in and ask questions later. And I'm not sure which branch you served in, but it's almost like if you were a Marine, it would be that Marine attitude and everything. So I was just wondering, has that always been your business attitude? Because I know a lot of times people will shy away from doing business and even shy away from going after entrepreneurship because they're afraid of a failure. But it seems to me like you have almost the opposite kind of viewpoint. You're kind of like, if it's on my mind, I'm going to go for it.
No, it wasn't because of military. I was in the Air Force, by the way. It's just me. It's just me. I believe I deserve the best, right? Okay. I think it's the best opportunity. I'm going to make this happen. How can I make it happen? With my skill set, how can I make it happen? If it's at the club, she's the cutest girl, I'm going to find the cutest girl. I ain't going to be just like, I can't get her. I'm going to make it happen. So that's just my attitude. I'm going to go for it. My motto is, I'm not going to ever tell myself no.
Okay.
And like you said, many people tell themselves no. I'm never going to tell myself no. I'm going to go for it till I find out this is not reality, but I'm going to try and make it happen as much as possible.
What's the worst case of that happening where you got into that situation where you had that attitude, and I definitely admire that attitude, and you had like the opposite, like maybe you were going after the girl in the club and it did not work out the way you were going, or you were going after a business deal with that kind of aggressive, gung-ho kind of attitude, and it did not kind of work out the way that you expected it. And how did you bounce back? Because I'm sure that even with that attitude, there have been times that things have not gone your way, whether that was in the dating life or whether that was in the business life. And I just wanted to know how you bounce back in those attitudes. Because like I said, I understand the attitude of going for it all the time, but we all have our failure moment. So if you had that failure moment, how did you bounce back from it?
I don't know if I bounced back yet from it. The one was I did when I was selling beer, I'm walking around all the cool neighborhoods and stuff. So have the cool bars, what have you, but they also have the boutiques. Right. And I see the boutiques there. I'm like, boom. Like, I wish I had something to sell to them. While I'm walking there, I can sell my beer, I can sell something to them. So I end up starting me a perfume company.
Okay.
And so read a couple books about it, found resources, got my perfume all made and everything. It just went head on. It was great. I was making money. I was going to parties and what have you, doing perfume. And then I got a letter right when I got the website up. Like, phone call is kind of weird. Like, we're from back east, and we sir, you got the Flirt 24/7. The perfume's called Flirt 24/7. Flirt 24/7 brand is great. It is out now. Like, yeah, it's out. Okay, we want to order it soon. All right, thank you. A few weeks later, we got a letter. Cease. do not have this out. It was from L'Oreal. They claimed they had a perfume called Flirt. Oh, wow. And my Flirt 24/7 was too close to theirs. And so you would need to stop. So at that time, I did a music video for MC Hammer, and we was in the editing suite. And I don't care what they say. I'm going to still sell my perfume. And he's like, oh, look, they'll sue you so bad that your great grandkids will still be broke. You may want to do another pathway. And so for me, there was no other pathway because I spent all my money to do the perfume. All the stuff was bottled. Everything was there. So I sold it at parties and stuff, but I could not do it on my website any longer. I could not do that. So I made a little money back on that, but it would have blown up. if I would have ran like straight in, slow down, like what do I need to do legally to protect myself so to be a long term.
Yeah, that makes sense. You mentioned MC Hammer and you mentioned music videos. What was it like breaking into the music video business? I know a lot of people, including some independent filmmakers that I know, that always want to break into that. And sometimes they'll do it on the local level. I'm actually here in Durham where Duke is located at. So I know that sometimes those local artists will hire local videographers and they'll get them to make the video. But definitely it's not like New York or LA where there are tons of folks always making videos for a lot of the even major name artists. But once again, that gung-ho attitude, I was wondering if you could share some of the success of the music video business and how you got involved in that.
Well, I was fortunate when I started doing my production company. I was at a film festival, and I met a guy. Well, I knew him from high school, and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm starting the production company." I barely knew anybody, but I'm starting a production company. You know, it's real. He's like, I'm a director. If you need anything, I'm there for you. And so we partner. And he had just done the big gospel dance singer. I can't even think of his name right now. Well, it's real big.
Andre Crouch?
No, but dancer too. He mostly raps. He mostly talks. However you hit me, oh man, it's gonna come to me. But he did a big video. He just did that. So basically, he had his own company. And so when I did a commercial, I invited all his friends to my commercial, that people he's done music videos with. And then so we met a lot of people. So he already knew some people. Now I knew some people. So that's it. Just and this we're still in Oakland.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really easy. And people gave us a lot of love. That's what you hear about entertainment. People don't give you love, a lot of love. And so that's it. With him, we talked partner and we put our heads together. We started meeting people. He already knew people. I knew people. So the MC Hammer video that came across because I was at a film place in San Francisco. Film, like my friend gave an event, a short film festival, and I met these guys from Korea, and I was there talking and networking. And it's like, yeah, we're producers. We like this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I'm a producer too. I'm from Oakland. Like, oh, great. And so we exchanged information. But 3 weeks later, I'm reading in Billboard magazine that MC Hammer partnered up with a Korean MC Hammer, and they're going to do some stuff together. So I'm just reading that randomly, and then that evening, I get a call from the Koreans like, "Hey, would you like to produce a video with us? We got MC Hammer, and we need someone to help with this. And you're from Oakland." I'm like, "Yeah, I do that." I said, "Great. We meet with him tonight at midnight." And so the meeting was set for midnight, but it didn't start till like 3. and then we met, we connected, and Hammer liked that way I was on the set, so he had me do a couple other videos. But it's really a relationship, and he's like the smartest person. Not one of the smartest people I ever know. Just really warm and knows everything about everything. If you talk technology, he knows technology. Talk comic books, he talks comic books. You know, he's like one of the original investors of YouTube. So he's all over so many different things. So really, I tell people just network. The young people, network your crowd. Go introduce yourself to people your age. You know, that's how you gonna win. And that's how you get big. It's not going you gonna get big going to Drake or whatever. It's gone to JoJo that you never heard of, it, nobody else knows, but you made him really happy and he blows up, you're gonna blow up with him. So that's how it happens. You partner, you get the people that you know, and you start getting something that looks really good, really amazing, and then you start building your reel, and then people come start looking for you.
Now, the other thing that I know that Oakland is real known for is this sense, and like I said, Fernando is part of that, is this sense of activism. I mean, definitely the Black Panthers were started there in Oakland. Definitely there were parts of Occupy, and I was involved with Occupy here in Durham. They were coming out of Oakland, and of course, there's a lot of things even around Black Lives Matter and other kind of more recent things that have come out of Oakland as well. So I was just wondering your take on Oakland as kind of a political land and definitely an activism kind of land. But I was wondering your take on that as being one that lived in Oakland, but also spent time in San Francisco. And I think of San Francisco as being similar because definitely there have been some great political figures that have come out of there, some great activist figures. And of course, that was kind of the home or one of the homes of the LGBT movement and everything. So I just wondering your take on your two primary cities and their activism history.
Well, Oakland's my city. San Francisco is my second city. And they're very different. But just like when you described me, that's Oakland. We don't get it done. We're not going to wait for you to tell us, oh, we can't do this. No, we can do this. We can make it happen.
Right.
So, and we have what's unique about Oakland is that small city. We have some big gangsters there. We have some big people that are fighters and strong, whatever. But also we have a strong, big community of African-American doctors. I can think about 5 people in my high school that their parents were doctors.
Wow.
And so we have professional class. So with that, you have those people intermingling. You have the people that's educated and know what needs to be to educated. Then you have the people who are like, what? I'm not scared of nothing. And with that mentality together, I think that's what makes Oakland special. My friend said he talked to a federal agent. And he's like, yo, it's hard to deal with Oakland because every other places is so segregated. You know who the nice people are and what. Oakland, everybody gets along with each other. Right. So it's very unique that way. So I all know that we have the local, I can't think of it now, but the longshoremen is really strong. A lot of African American people, longshoremen. And so they have that history. So they have the money, but then they're going to fight for the community. So I think that, so for me, the only way I've been involved with it was that I did a movie called Black August. And I was producer of that movie. And so that's where I got to see, a little bit of background of how we made stuff happen. But yeah, San Francisco is a little bit more liberal, as you know. And they haven't had a strong African-American community probably since the 70s.
Yeah.
But they're warm and everything. But it's totally different. 3 different cities are different, but we complement each other. Because Berkeley has its own personality. And it's right next to Oakland. But very educated, but very not highbrow, very just hippie-ish. And very cool. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a mix of those people help each other.
No, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I noticed about Oakland, I noticed it kind of with the sports environment, is that it definitely has kind of that attitude similar to your attitude with business, because even though the team is now in Vegas, it did start in Oakland and then it moved to LA and then now it's in Vegas. But definitely when it was in Oakland, it still had that kind of we're going to do it our way kind of attitude. And I think that the Raiders still have that kind of attitude, even though they're a Vegas team now. And I imagine that they've had that ever since they were in Oakland several years back. So it seems like that attitude has followed them, even though they've gone to now 2 separate cities. Because like I said, I know they moved from Oakland to LA and now they're in Vegas. But that attitude that they initiated with their ownership there in Oakland seems to have followed them no matter where they've gone. And it's kind of just, we're going to, like I said, do it our way. And if you like it, you like it. And if you don't like it, that's your problem, not ours.
Right. That is true. But they lost the excellence part of that. It used to be like we do our way and we're going to win our way. Right. They're kind of weak lately. I'd rather you talk about our athletes like a Ricky Henderson or Gary Payton or Jason Kidd or Bill Russell.
Right.
Those type of people. They represent Oakland better than even the Raiders do.
Wow. Yeah, and Bill Russell was definitely an amazing player and definitely was one of the top basketball players, similar to like a Chamberlain and a lot of other ones. But definitely, I would consider him one of the greatest NBA players and definitely in the top 5. There's no doubt about it, and no matter what list you put out there and everything. But he was definitely a truly amazing player. But I'd love to know your perception of him, and definitely Ricky Henderson was a great football player.
Well, Henderson was a baseball player.
I mean, baseball player, right?
Yeah, the 40-40 club. No, I'm just saying that even Russell was an activist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's a great player, but he was an activist. My favorite player when I was young, I don't watch baseball that much, is this Ricky Henderson. He's just going to do whatever he needs to do to get on base.
Right.
He was just fearless. And I think that's part of it. And even though Reggie's not from Oakland, but when Reggie Jackson was Oakland, he had that fearless fight in him.
Right.
And I think that's something about the spirit of Oakland.
No, it definitely has a wonderful spirit and a very strong, like I said, fighting spirit and all of that. Tell me a little bit about that movie because I know that there was a Black August celebration even here in Durham. We've actually done them for several years. I know they're all over the city and all over the country. But were you just focusing on the Black August celebrations there in California, or is you looking at them as a national trend? And how is the movie developed? Because I do know that there are Black August celebrations throughout the country. Because I know there's been a major one here in Durham that has been going on for several years. I'm not sure what happened last year with the pandemic and everything, but I do know historically they do them on a regular basis.
So it's really inspired by George Jackson, right? So George Jackson is the original one, went in prison for stealing cigarettes, and was there in prison for like 10 years for stealing cigarettes. But he got revolutionized when he was in the prison. Right. And so his brother, I don't know if you know, his brother tried to get him out, and they went shot some police. They shot the judge in Marin County. Right. And so his story, his history is kind of like a Malcolm X type of story in that area, because he's very educated and fearless in the Oakland story. So that was the original Black August. That happened in Black August. So, and we did the movie based on his story.
Okay.
And so I was invited to do the movie. I had a meeting, and they asked me, like, Oliver, this is the movie. Here's the budget. Who's behind it? And I said, no, thank you. Like, you don't want to produce it to be your first movie? I'm like, no, thank you. I have to pass on this one. Just the budget, I just don't see it. And with the music video, it's $20,000, maybe $50,000, but that's $1 million I'm responsible for. And I wasn't confident that the people who they end up doing it, well, kind of doing, like J.R. Ryder, basketball player, he's a funder, and they had some other funders. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to pass. And so I went home, and that's with the same director that I've been with. And I went home, and my wife like, your director's on a movie, and you're not on a movie? Like, no, this one's not for me. She's like, you better get your butt back on that set. So I went back on the set, and I said, hey, I just want to be a PA. I just want to be a production assistant. Is that okay? Like, oh, we're sure. We'd love to have you. So I ended up being a production assistant. Production assistant. We're supposed to shoot it in San Quentin, but they wouldn't let us. So they ended up shooting in Las Vegas. I was out there in the prisons helping direct the film and everything there. And then halfway through, maybe like 80% through, they ran out of money. So they had all this good footage. They ran out of money and just stopped. And they owed a lot of people in the city money because they weren't doing exactly what they needed to do with the money. And so it just stopped. And so, there was no, I was just a production assistant. So I was okay. I could just walk on. So what happened, and I don't know if you know, can't think of his name now. Why I can't think of his name? But from CSI, the African American that used to be in CSI, with the nice eyes. I apologize. I get his name. It just went blank.
I'll think of it in a second. I'll look it up and everything on the original CSI.
Yeah, original CSI. And the women love him. Every time he's on set, like, ah.
You talking about Gary Jordan?
Gary Jordan, yeah, he is our star.
Okay.
And so, so 3 years later, one of the actors was talking about on Warner Brothers set, talking to someone else, said, yeah, we did something with Black August, and executive passed by, like, we've been looking for that movie. Do you know anything about the movie? You're like, yeah, I know the people who did it. So they connected with the people. They gave them some more money, and then they tried to start it again, but nobody would work with them in Oakland because they owed so many people money.
Wow.
Then they called me up. So, Oliver, can you help us finish this out? And I said, yeah, I can make that happen. So what happened is I called the different people, brought down the editing price, brought down everything, and they finished part of it there. And then they came out to LA because I'm in LA by this time, and we built a set, and all the inside jail scenes, we just redid them. And so we knocked out the movie. So he was able to finish. So I went from a PA to one of the producers at the end of the movie.
Oh, wow.
Ended up going film.
In terms of marketing and advertising, and like I said, that's definitely part of your background. And then I want to get to the filmmaking as well. What do you think is the number one mistake that people in general, but we as a people, make when we try to come up with our marketing and our advertising campaigns?
We don't budget.
Mm.
You gotta spend money.
Right.
You gotta spend money. You act like Marvel, like, oh, Marvel, people just gonna go. Yeah, people gonna go, but they spend a lot of money so you can remember them.
Right.
They spend a lot of money to advertise in movies, whatever, what have you. So you can't do that nationally, but you can do that on a local
Mhm.
level. You could buy, like what I did the Brothers Brewing Company. We did it all Oakland, but it
Okay.
felt national, was big, and
Mhm.
it moved the needle. But if you don't have a marketing budget as well as hustling, like the rappers going store to store, hey, this is my project, this is my project, this is my project, letting people know, you're not gonna go anywhere. So get
Yeah.
your budget and don't forget your hustle. You need to go out and meet people, connect with people.
No, I definitely can agree with that. Are you surprised? Because I've interviewed a lot of people, and sometimes they're surprised. Sometimes they tell me they're not surprised. But are you surprised at how many creatives, even though they call it show business, don't necessarily have a pitch deck or a business plan or any idea of the basic business tools?
No, it's a different world, you know. So they just have to learn that.
Right.
I mean, because if you're creative, you are creative. That's who your being is.
Mhm.
But again, following the rappers, they didn't just stay being creative.
Right.
What if Michael Jackson was like Jay-Z? Or you know what I'm saying? If he was
Mhm.
selling red leather jackets,
Right.
how much richer than him? But he was happy just being a pop star. This
Mhm.
generation now is like, oh, we're gonna be everything. You
Mhm.
going I make you sell drinks. Well, I need to own part of that company so we can
Gotcha.
own drinks ourselves. So they really just have to change. And it's really just, as you start off create, okay, I know this, this is who I am, but you don't want to be a secret creative.
Yeah, you
You
definitely
have to
don't
know
want
the
to.
business side. You
No.
have to know the marketing side. You have to see how that side works.
Yep, I agree with you on that. But the other flip side of that, I guess, is that sometimes you have, and you kind of mentioned it, but by the time somebody like a Jay-Z has done it, they've already established themselves. But I have been surprised, sometimes even shocked when people have tried to want to overextend themselves and try to do everything for everybody. And I'm not saying you can't be a musician and have a clothesline and have a perfume and have a sneaker and all of that. But sometimes I'm sitting there going like, wait a minute, you're trying to do all five of these at the same time. And sometimes that can seem to be difficult. So would you advise people to try to do multiple streams, or do you think that you need to concentrate on one stream, solidify that stream, and then maybe diversify?
I, it's different today
Mm.
because of social network. Because basically, you're a brand,
Right.
right? So if you're wearing clothes as you do music, that those clothes, people are going to see it. So to your point, I would dig in on something first and be excellent at that one thing.
Right.
I would do that. However, Kanye,
Hmm.
his fashion does makes way more than his music right now.
Right.
His fashion stuff with Adidas and Louis Vuitton, two of the best direct designers out there today. The one that passed the other day, Virgil, he's
Hmm.
because of Kanye,
Hmm.
right? So he didn't put himself in a box. But you gotta know your strengths,
Right.
right? So I know I'm really good at this, and I can do this and this. But
Right.
perhaps if you want to be in a perfume company and you're not good in it, find somebody that is good in it
Hmm.
and partner with them.
Right.
You know, but I think that um, you know, again, you have to have something. And I try to teach my son. You gotta have something that's really, really strong
Gotcha.
and focus on that. But beyond that, once you get the momentum going, get your brand going, like, yeah, I buy cupcakes from Fat Joe. That fits his brand. I see him eat cupcakes every day. I eat cupcakes. Let me get Fat Joe's cupcakes, right? So
Yeah.
I've seen some artists done it with the potato chips. They got rappers on potato chips.
Mm.
We eat a lot of snacks.
Right.
So I think if it's a natural fit, it'll be good for you. When
No, that
some
makes
people are doing just putting brands on other stuff, it's not gonna work for you. But like
no.
50 Cent went from water. He made money, real credible money with the vitamin water because he said, "No, I don't want you guys to sponsor me. I'd rather take shares." And when they got bought by $1 billion for Coca-Cola, it made him huge.
Yeah.
And now he's doing movies.
Yeah, that's true. From a brand new
One thing,
standpoint,
let me go back with the one thing though. With fashion, African Americans, we're so trendy. It's hard for us to do that.
right?
You're gonna be, if you know it's gonna be a short run, you're good.
Yeah.
Because you'll be hot today and gone tomorrow. Whereas we wear Ralph Lauren for the last 50 years and it's still cool.
Oh yeah, that's real true. But the other thing with fashion, and it's something that I guess it kind of aggravates me, even though I understand our youth, and I don't have any of my own. I do have my two nephews that are 12 and 13, and one of them just recently, or maybe both of them are sharing it. I'm not sure whether they got individual ones or they have one each, but they just recently got the Oculus set, so they're in that whole virtual world. And I noticed that during our Thanksgiving celebration. But I'm thinking about like the kids, even maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they were always loving to wear the Malcolm X shirts and the Che Guevara shirts and the things along those lines, which I don't mind them wearing the shirts, and I love them honoring the heroes. But then what frustrates me is if you ask them who they are, they're sitting there going like, I don't know, it's some dude that I'm wearing.
Right.
So I just wish that there was some way, maybe that there was like a pamphlet that came with the book, maybe not a whole pamphlet, but something that at least explained so they would have an idea of who they are wearing if they're going to honor these people. Because sometimes I'm going like, I'm glad that you are honoring them by wearing their shirts. Just like I'm glad that they have holidays. Like I'm glad that Juneteenth is a federal holiday, but I'm also afraid that Juneteenth is just going to become another Madison Avenue excuse for a sale.
Right. That is true.
So that's my fear, is that we're going to have like the big Juneteenth sale and everybody be rushing to go get their Juneteenth discounted flowers. And I'm going like, don't think that's quite what they had in mind when they created the holiday. But that's one of my fears and everything. But I'd love to know your thoughts if that's something that you're concerned about as a marketing person.
No, I rather you could educate them. Like, oh, that's Malcolm X. That's why that's important.
Right.
I'd rather they wear that than other stuff they wear.
That's true.
If they're there and if they're moving in that direction, you can just kind of, oh, that's cool. You know why that's cool? Because his parents was taken away from him at a very young age.
Right.
But yet he still was able to change the world.
Right.
Yeah, X. All right, brother. Okay. You research them. Right. YouTube them.
Yeah, send them to YouTube University. That makes sense. Just send them to YouTube University so they can learn about why they're wearing the people that they're wearing. Yeah, I like that. Actually, I might have to do that some more oftentimes and all of that. So I do understand that attitude. You mentioned the Black August movie. Are there any other movies that you've done that you are real proud of? And are there any movie projects that you're hoping to do that you haven't done, but they're part of like a story that you are hoping somebody will help you back or help you create on either the financial side or on the creative side? So are there any that you've done in the past that you're really proud of, or are there any that you have in your mind that you're hoping to do in the near future?
No, the ones I've done in the past, there's all been short films, what have you, that's cool, what have you, but it was nothing big. The Black August was the biggest opportunity that I had. I enjoyed that. In the future, I don't know if you've seen it, but I did do something, try to pitch ESPN, a story about my great-grandfather.
Okay.
So he played pro football, pro hockey, and pro baseball.
Oh, wow.
And he was the first African-American to play in the NFL.
Okay.
But when he played in the NFL, that's like saying Jordan was the Wizards. Yeah, the NFL came towards the end of him. So he's the end of his greatness. But he was the first one to play in the NFL. So I shot them. Flew out to New York and talked to them. They're like, we love this. Why we never heard about this before? Like, because he's in Minneapolis in the 20s. If he is here, you would have known about him. So they passed on. I had a few meetings. They passed on. So what I realized, his biggest story, even all that story, he's also an attorney. He ended up graduating and becoming an attorney. But what I realized that his biggest thing to me was him being a college athlete. When he was a college athlete, football was huge.
Right.
Football was bigger than baseball. Say baseball World Series, first World Series, maybe he had like 10,000, 15,000 people. and his football game had like 50,000 people. So they were the stars, and for him to be an amazing star at that time. So, and his team was undefeated.
Oh, wow.
So that's something I'm pitching. I got people working with me to develop it. His story as a youth, and his whole story is amazing. He also was. I remember reading his Guinness Book of Records.
Mm-hmm.
He had the record for jumping over oil barrels on ice on his motorcycle.
Oh, wow.
So he was a daredevil too. So his name is Bobby Marshall. You can look up Bobby Marshall. He's a Minneapolis, Minnesota gopher. And so that's the one that I'm trying to make happen in the future. So over the break, I made a treatment for it. I got some guys who's working with me, and so we'll see how it comes.
No, it sounds like a truly amazing story, and particularly since you said he also played hockey, and there are not that many of us playing hockey right now. I mean, we're still very much in baseball, still very much in football and basketball, but I don't know that many of us even on the hockey fields in the 21st century, even though there are more than there were several decades ago, but still not that many. You probably can count them on your hands and everything with the entire league, how many are in the entire hockey pantheon and things of those lines. But definitely there's not a lot of us in that field. And you said he was doing that in the 20s when there were probably even less. So just the fact that he was decided he wanted to go skating and doing that very harsh sport is a credit to him as well.
Right. And they said he was good. He was good in everything. Bicycle racing. I'm looking at in college, he raced bicycles as well. I guess that's what sports in college. So he raced the bicycles, ran track, football, baseball. And so, but he's most known for his football and baseball too. And he also managed some teams as a baseball player.
Okay.
So he played before the Negro Leagues, and he played from like 1906 to maybe 1940 or something, because he played for a long time.
Gotcha. Wow. And the other thing that I know that you've been doing in that creative space has been this children's book. And I'd love to know more about the children's book, because we're not having enough of us doing children's books. And you definitely have written this amazing children's book. It looks like you wrote it along with an illustrator, and it even deals with dancing, and it deals with being a little bit of maybe the smallest kid, but still having a big heart and still getting things done. So I'd love to know more about this book, and if it's going to be turned into any animation, or if the book has got any future of becoming other books as well.
Yeah, well, the COVID gave birth to this book.
Okay.
Because I was basically just Netflixing, and my wife and my son was in other rooms doing creative stuff every day. And I was like, I need to join the party. And my wife and son are both great artists, great illustrators. So I'm like, let me write a little story, children's book, and see if they would write it, do the illustrations for me. So my wife's like, nah. And then my son, he did one day, like, oh, this is too much work. He said, nah. But I love my story. And so I just had to find an illustrator. And my name is Oliver. So, of course, I had a lot of nicknames. And I found out, like, every sentence, like, what's up, little O? What's up, Ollie? What's up, this son? Like, I need to find one name. And my favorite name, and my friends used to call me, is Ollie Scully. And I'm like, that's great. So I was going to name him Ollie Scully. I'm like, who else would know that? So then I came up with Ollie Tamale, right? So the first book was, which I haven't published yet, was the first one, was just him learning how to ride a bike. Okay. So that's my first story, him learning how to ride a bike. And then I need an origin story. I'm like, who's this Ollie Tamale? So the next one was him learning how to ride, showing that he could dance, and discovering tamales, and discovering that he loves tamales. So that's it. Then I wrote a third one. And the third one went about him playing double dutch and football. So really, loosely based on my life and my son's life, and just adventures of like a 7 years old, just playing first football game, dancing first time, learning how to ride bike. And so when I finished the book, it's really to see how it's done. I did it. Okay, I made it happen. It looks good. Okay, great. So from there, I wrote the other two books that I like, well, let me send this one out, do the prototype. And then I started wanting to look for an agent. And so I went to the book agents, and I went to all the websites. And I went to like at least 50. And I probably saw 3 African Americans in the 50 agencies. And most of them are based in New York. which is weird to me. I'm like, you can't find any African American people to work in your agency. I mean, I understand Silicon Valley, like we can't just grab 500 African American engineers. Well, that's a lot of stuff.
Right.
Studying, what have you. But writing, creative, who could beat us? So I was discouraged about that. And I was also discouraged about the income they made. So a writer would get like 5%, maybe 5 to 10% of the book that's made. Where I'm doing it myself, I get 30 to 50%, or even more than that if I buy in volume. So I was like, let me do this myself. The writer, the person that I had to illustrate was just a freelancer. I'm like, I'll do this stuff. I think it could be better, and I want to partner with an African American. So I found an African American illustrator now. So we're kind of rebooting, and probably next year I would come out with a series with at least 3 books.
Okay.
3 to 5 books. And because we talking about advertising earlier. So if I'm going to do Facebook ads or Instagram ads or Amazon ads, and I'm get people to come over to my site, I don't want them to spend just $11. I want them to spend $30, $50. So when I go this time, I'm going to have probably 3 or 4 books, plus activity books, plus coloring books, and all that stuff where they could do. And I could probably even have some T-shirts, right? So that's my thing now, is to think of it as a series. Think of it as a brand and as a series, and then go back and put it out, do like a big launch party, and then push it again. So I think that it really gives me independence. I talked about fashion earlier. A cute book doesn't go out of style. Next year there's always going to be a new 5-year-old looking for a book. You can have that. And just for me, it's just about me getting my hustle on. There's no limit where I could go. Again, from the hip hop artists. Yeah. Hammer made all kinds of money selling CDs. Master P, how much a CD costs? $5. That's how much my book costs, $5. If I reach out to enough people. And I believe there's people like you and resources like you to get the word out. Once you get the word out, it's just pushing the button. Boop.
Yeah.
And there's so many opportunities. So you can do digital. My thing is digital now, digital and paperback. You can also do a hardback. We can also do an audiobook. So look at all that one project has, all that potential. And so I'm looking for in the future, is working out all that potential to make it as big as brand as possible.
Now that makes a lot of sense. I've been on a couple of spaces in the Clubhouse, a couple in some other spaces as well, but I'd say Clubhouse is the leading one, where they've talked about the lack of diversity in Hollywood and the lack of diversity, particularly in our gatekeeper space and things along those lines. So in your own experience, what has your experience been like in that field? And do you think it's something that we need to work on? I mean, I'm glad that there are people, even though I might not be his biggest fan, that are doing things like Tyler Perry and even what Oprah's doing, but they're not maybe doing as much as they could. And there are definitely others that could even be going into that space. And a lot of times we do depend on people that don't look like us in order to approve the things that we're going to do. So what is your take on Hollywood and just a creative space as a fairness space? And would you like to see some more diversity in that space, particularly among our gatekeepers?
It's there. It's coming now. We've got that attitude now. There's about 5 other production companies. Even LeBron has a big production company. There's people are doing it, making it happen, and we understand we have the power. Right. We are the creative. You want us on our show? We need to be part of that show. So Kevin Hart's doing a lot of stuff now. So it's coming now. It's really just about us building up our skills, making sure that we have the catalogs. And to your point earlier, understand that we know the business part of it. Because we already know the creative part, it comes to us naturally. So long we need to know the business part of it. So now it's open to us. There's nothing we can't do. So there's no more close the gate. Like, what? I can't be on your network? Well, let me go to YouTube. Let me go to Instagram. Right. Let me go, you know what I'm saying? I already have a following. And we go to them now, to the networks or what have you, with power. Like, it's not just a pitch. I have 3 million followers who likes mine. So I think really now just going back to holding your own power and going to the table with strength. And I think I've seen there's like a dozen big people that's doing that right now. Shonda Rhimes is the one that's doing. She has a huge deal. So the people we're happening now. So we do need to search and learn ways to get in through the networks. That is, learn how to go through not being a celebrity, but learn how to go to like a. If you want to be a director of TV show, you got to know how to be a writer, and you
Right.
got to learn how to get in those interns, what have you. But it's growing now, and if people want it, they can have it.
Hmm. Now that makes a lot of sense. It is definitely a growing field. I'm also seeing a lot of people, some that I admire, some of it that I would consider almost like trash art or definitely pop art and things along those lines. But what is your take on those artists that are using NFTs and cryptocurrencies as a way for them to get their artwork out there? I know that I'm part of a audio puppet troupe, and they're always talking about the NFTs that they're using, and they're definitely talking about some other forms of what do they call it, blockchain technology to get their word out. But as a creative, is this something that you're looking into, or is it something that is something that you would not touch with a 10-foot pole?
No, it's, so I forgot to say my son kind of inspired me to do a book because he's writing a book, and he's 14 and he's writing a middle school novel.
Oh wow!
Right, so he's probably about 28,000 words into the novel. It needs to be between 35 and 40,000 words. And he's an artist. He always created he's drawing whatever. And we went to Complex Con, and some of the people he met was amazing in a NFT market. One guy just loved his stuff. That guy sold one of his pieces for $75,000.
Wow.
Just a nice little drawing, And he said he'd mentor him. So for me, my goal would be for him, my son, to do his own cover, and that'd be an NFT, and that gets the blast, and maybe somebody buys it big, but it gets the PR. And like the book is amazing too, which everybody can buy the book. So I think you gotta find a way to make it work for you, right? I think that it's you're not in the loop. So it's all trend. It ain't nothing here but a trend. And
Right.
know that you're not in the loop. So with him, like, yeah, maybe we could get on, maybe we could get this money as well. That's good. But don't think that's the only way you could do it. Know that it's a loop. And just as they start to loop, you don't know when the loop's coming. Like when I was like me, I was very popular in high school, right? When we go to parties, it's good. And then we see some people coming in, we didn't want in the party, we just leave the party, that party fell off. But I was in the loop. I don't know when Musk could just say, "Oh, I'm not using that NFT anymore. I'm using that one." Everything just splits. That's what I'm saying. So understand that it's a betting game. It's not real. It's really about real art. It's about who these people think that's hot.
Right.
It's like the other art you see where they do a banana on a wall and they're like, "I'll pay $50,000." It's because somebody said that was hot, and the other people believed them. Like, yeah, that's hot. Boom. So as soon as they close, you don't want to be on the other side of it, like musical chairs. Right. You don't put out your thing. So to me, I mean, it's going to continue to go on, but it's a trend. But you don't know if it's going to be hot or cold or where you're going to fit.
That's very true, and everything along those lines. One thing that you said was how your kids are involved in the art world as well, and your wife is also. So it sounds to me like one of the things that y'all are doing that I wish more artists would do, and I'm not saying that everybody has to follow in the same footsteps, but it would be great if we found ways to use our creativity to build what some people call generational wealth. So did you always know that your kids were going to be into the creative space? And do you and your wife, because you said she's a creative as well, encourage them to go into that space? Or would you be perfectly happy if they decided to become accountants?
No, I have him on the STEM, STEM, computer science, robot, and then he always just do something incredible. He designs shoes. I want to design shoes. I'm going to do this. It's just this gift. And so we're going to keep it a balance, but it's his gift, and we're going to try to see how we can enhance it. How can we nourish it? So he doesn't, I mean, he writes, like sometimes I have him write, and it takes him forever. I'm like, you've been writing for 5 hours. Then I'll read it in like 2 sentences. But it's the most amazing sentences that I ever read. Like, oh, whoa, okay. And so, because I'm more of a project manager, I'm doing stuff because, okay, there's not something that needs to be done. Let me do it. But he just has a gift. So he's amazing. He loves it. And so I haven't pushed him that way, but I nourish it. So he sketch. We get them best pens possible. He also sketched on the iPad. He's done one art piece he did on Sketchbook. Then he did the same thing on iPad. It looked amazing. So we make sure he has the iPad. And he makes sure that he has the tools that he needs to excel.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know that the founders of this network, they oftentimes talk about our education system, and they feel that in a lot of ways, while we're in the 21st century, we're teaching 18th century values, and they get frustrated that we don't teach about because I think one of them is a pension attorney, and the other one is an engineer. Yeah, Kimberly is an engineer by training and everything. So they definitely have some STEM background and all of that, but they get frustrated that they don't see enough of that, particularly the day-to-day uses, whether that's home ec or financial planning or a number of other things taught in our traditional school systems. I mean, maybe some of the charter schools are doing that, but they don't see enough of that. And a lot of times the arts are tossed to the side, just like sometimes even sports is tossed to the side as well. So I'm just wondering your take on the education system and particularly its support of the arts as both a creative and a marketing person.
Well, we just have that.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice if we could give this purpose, give it direction, but we have that. We created jazz, we created hip hop. So much stuff we created, we have that. What we need to know is how to keep it as a brand,
Gotcha.
to grow it. You know, Disney is a big corporation because somebody drew a mouse,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that initiated it. And so for them just to create that and to grow. So I think that art's gonna be there, especially now. It's beyond traditional art. Artists gonna find the stuff like you say on Instagram, on like a lot of stuff that I see my son does. He'll be on Instagram and it's like he follow that artist stuff and he follow that artist and learn. And you can do that from anything. So it's the parents' fault, the community's fault to give them opportunities and give them challenges. Like, can you do this? Can you do this? To have them grow that. But if we're gonna just count on the school, we may fail.
Gotcha.
But it's opportunities are there for them now.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have the fear, or is there any fear in your mind that, and I agree with what you said, that we've created so much powerful things, whether that was jazz, whether that was blues, whether that was hip hop, or even a number of other styles. I mean, shucks, our instruments are very much instrumental in country music because the banjo actually came out of Africa, and there's some other instruments that they use regularly that came out of the African nations. But I do notice that sometimes ethnicities become the trend of the day. So definitely there was a time that urban was very hot, and you alluded to that very early in the interview, and we can include the Latin population as part of urban. But then I wonder, as the Latin society becomes bigger, do they kind of push us out of the urban market and become the more major force into that, meaning that Madison Avenue starts paying more attention to the various Latin American cultures, and they're not one unified part of that because it's a very broken up kind of society. Because I mean, something that Peruvian likes doesn't necessarily mean that the person from Honduras is going to like it, or the person from Chile might not like what the person from Argentina likes. And I'm just using those as examples. But we also know that there is a growing Asian market as well, whether that's Indian Bollywood kind of movies or even some of the music coming out like K-pop and things along those lines. Do you have any fear that we might become marginalized in the sense that we are not as popular as we used to be because of newer ethnicities coming in and having a greater stake in the pie?
Yeah, no, not at all. I think it's like a gumbo, especially with Latinos and African Americans. We love each other, and we're gonna grow it together.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's good that it's a mix, because a lot of other cultures like our culture more than we like.
Right.
I don't know if jazz would still be along if wasn't for Japanese people, right?
Right.
We talk about country music. That's our old music, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Talking about R&B classics. Latinos love that more than we do.
Wow.
And so they carry it. So we carry it. I think that we always have this unique thing. African Americans is unique flavor that everybody wants, and we'll switch up.
Mhm.
So I think that, and you say Madison Square, the people over there in New York, they don't really matter anymore.
Mm.
It's really about the influences, and influences can come from anywhere.
Right.
And they're not more of like, oh, I'm you, it's segregated. Like, oh, that's hot, I'm hot. Let's get that direction.
Right.
So I'm not
Yeah.
concerned. I think other people could be concerned because they can't figure us out. But Latinos and African Americans and Asian, bring it all in,
Mhm.
and we grow from each other.
Yeah, that
So
makes
it's like,
sense.
even like I talking about, our fashion goes out of style, but Chinese kept it up, street fashion together,
Right.
right? So we grow together. So bring whoever to the party. We're
Mhm.
still well, but we still got to compete.
Oh yeah.
We still have to compete.
Oh yeah. But one of that part of that conversation that comes up, which I'd love to hear your take on this, is this notion of whether we want to fully assimilate into the greater American and world economy, or whether we want to like have our own individual pockets that are our communities. And I've heard some people argue that they want to fully assimilate and move into say the urban parts of cities, and others are perfectly content with living in the Compton versions of wherever they may be at, and things along that line, or the Harlem versions, even though Harlem has become very gentrified recently as well. But then you see newer people move in. Like, I know that a lot of times we have a decent population of Indians here, and a lot of times Indians is in from India, not Native Americans. And a lot of times they will stay in their individual neighborhoods and not really get out more than their individual circles. And they seem to be a group of people that don't necessarily assimilate all that much and like to be insulated. So what is your take on societies either insulating or trying to assimilate, and which do you prefer?
There's no preference. I think people should go where opportunities are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that some people are about to hustle,
Mm-hmm.
and they're gonna make stuff happen, and some people aren't. And come to now I'm old. Right,
Mm-hmm.
before, like, I'm just staying in a black neighborhood. Like, cool, you have a kid. If that black neighborhood is a little bit violent, you don't want to go there.
Right.
But I also see like with LA and Oakland Hills, African American, mostly
Mm-hmm.
African American, upper income.
Mm-hmm.
LA has that area as well. So that I make sure that my son visits that area. I make sure that he's in everywhere. But I think that we kind of just slept on it, right? Because they're talking about they're taking over our lands, these cities, But like, dude, that drugstore was there for 50 years. Y'all never did anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
We, as a family, we could have done something with it,
Right.
and we chose not to. And I think it was hard for us to deal with. We're as our nature, we're so individual that we don't. We believe in America more than anyone else. We're super independent. Where other groups are like, yo, let's do this together. Let's buy a home together. Let's work together. And so that's one of the things with African Americans. Like, well, you're 18, you out, do your thing. Like, we're still figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
In other cultures, like, stay home, let's make money together, and then the house next door to us came available. Let's buy that together.
Right.
So it's really a culture thing.
No.
But I would like my son to be able to go anywhere.
No.
I would like him to feel comfortable anywhere.
No, that makes sense. Definitely want to feel comfortable anywhere. I know a friend of mine does a Black business conference, and a lot of times he gets frustrated with what we call the solopreneurs, which is basically people that are one-man shops, meaning that they are one-man businesses, and therefore they're not really passing the wealth on to their family. And definitely it also runs a greater risk of failing because it's basically being run as a one-man or a one-woman shop. They may have one or two employees, but they are very small in the frame, whereas some of the other entrepreneurial businesses make it a point to hire other members of their community and also try to make it a more than a solo type business and things along those lines. So as one that has been in that business space, would you agree that that's something that we need to get away from, is these solopreneur kind of businesses?
It's really about relationships. We got to be able to deal with each other. I know for me, when I had my production company, the top DP was a white guy. We loved him. And then he brought his guy because but he's a white guy. Like, no, you need to bring African American on there. We like you, and we want to work with you, but we need to train some of our people. Because if you're not available, we want some of our people good. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, oh, cool, I don't need you. Let me find somebody else. They're like, okay, I'll use your guy. So he used my guy in my projects. End up taking him around work on his projects too, right? So when you have that opportunity, you got to put your people in. Gotcha. You got to take care of your people. A lot of times you're like, oh, they say he's the best. Like, no, they're not the best. They said he's the best. Yeah, this guy is better than my guy because that guy had more opportunities than my guy. He had more. Let my guy get that many opportunities to see how they are. So for me, it's always important that we set each other up for success. There's times that you can do it and there's times you can't do it. When you can do it, make it happen. And I think, again, it's really like you got a tag team, I'm thinking. Because we're so African Americans are so creative. So I want to do. We all chefs. Sometimes like, yo, okay, I'm gonna be top chef on this project. You chill, boom, knock out that project. Okay, you top chef, and then go. Otherwise, we always try and be superhero, and it's hard. It's hard, and then like we don't have any wealth. So if I lose my money, I lose my money. It ain't no mom to go back to like, hey, here's another try, here's the third try, here's the fourth try. It's just one to God.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
That's it. We really got to learn how to be humble and work with each other and lift each other.
Yeah, and speaking of lifting each other, the other thing that frustrates, I know not just myself, but others, is when we do kind of what amounts to a cheapskate version. So a lot of times we will not pay our people what they are worth. And like I said, I've got a number of musician friends, and I know that they get frustrated by it because people will be trying to get them to do the freebie, the free performance, the hookup performance, things of that nature. They would never ask their plumber for a hookup performance, and they're definitely not going to ask their dentist or their doctor for a hookup performance, but they seem to want it from their creatives. So what is your reaction, and you've been in the game for a while, when people come to you and they want you to do something and they want you to do it without getting some sort of compensation?
I'll just be real. If I see value in the relationship, I may do it for cheap. If I see value in the relationship where I can see it going long term. However, if it's too cheap, like, no, I can't do that, partner. You need to go find some more money. But I need this and this. Well, I need this and this as well.
Right.
So, go find some more money and make it happen. My friend had a limousine company, and he's like, everybody is up here trying to get him as cheap as possible, but then buying all his drinks, spend all their money on the drinks at the liquor store. Like, you spend money with them, you can't spend money with me. Exactly. That doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I try to. And the other thing too is communication.
Right.
Communicate with people. Hey, bruh, your service is kind of whack, or not. It could be here. I want to work with you again, but you need to do this, right? Because what we do, we give white people a third, second, fourth time. We keep going to them, they mess up, whatever. We mess up once and we're out.
Right.
So instead of that, like, yo, dude, you was almost there. I need you to tighten this up. We need to be on time, partner. That's crucial. Yeah. My time is money because I got other things to do. And just educate them. Some people take oh yeah, all right, okay, I got that. Let's make that happen. Then I can come back to you. Now I rely on you. We can build together.
Right.
But it's really about, communicating with each other.
No, that communication is very much an important part of the conversation and making sure that communication happens in everything. How important do you think it is for us to share, and I'm sure you've done it with your kids and everything, our heritage, and to share the wealth of our heritage? Because I'm sometimes surprised that people that don't know who a Miles Davis is, or a John Coltrane, or even a Maya Angelou. And now we've just recently lost Mickey Grant. But I was just wondering, how important, as a African-American man there in California, do you think it is for you to share that experience with your kids and maybe even their friend circle?
Yeah, that's who I am. I'm definitely going to share who he is. He has to know why he is. With first school he went to is called Marcus Garvey.
Okay.
So, and Marcus Garvey's research and went to the school, and these kids, preschool, kindergarten, was doing multiplication. Like, whoa. So he's got, from the beginning, he's already got that into. So for me, he needs to know who he is.
Gotcha.
And so any opportunity I get, he watch a movie with them, read stuff with them, and even some stuff is not, it's even over his head, but then he come back to like, oh, okay, that's who that person is. Like
Yeah.
his name is Malik, and we named it after Malcolm X with Malik El Hashbaz. So he's like that's where you get the name from. Not just we just didn't find a cute name. There's a purpose behind your name.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely that, and this just general stuff too. He's in mock trial, and so he's doing that with school. But I've never been to trial or anything, so we have to write a few good men. So we go watch the old stuff. Like this is how what's comma a courtroom works.
Mm-hmm.
And before that, he's like we watched the soldier a soldier story. He watched. He's like, oh, that's kind of like a soldier story. So yeah, we go back and watch the classics together, so he knows where he stands and how blessed he is to be around at this time.
Yep. And you mentioned earlier, we talked about it with some of the things that you were doing around that whole George Floyd period and things along those lines. How important was it for you to have that conversation, what some people call the talk with your son? And is that something that you still feel is vital to have even now that we're going to go into 2022?
So I need somebody else to have to talk with him because I'm from Oakland. I talk crazy to the police. Like what? You just a person. What? So I need someone to tell him sincerely, you need to be polite. You need to be this and this and this, what have you. So, and I've been blessed most of the time when I've been stopped by police that we end up laughing. Because I'm a fun guy. I'm like talking to him and end up laughing. And that's my discourse. It's just two human beings talking to each other. Right. So what I tell him to be with any person is be respectful and be polite. And don't be, no. And that's me. That's my first. It's like, wait a minute. Be polite. Even if you're in the right, be polite.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything. Well, Oliver, it has been totally a pleasure talking to you, getting to wind everything down. And I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, going all over the place and learning a lot about you and learning a lot about what you've got going on. And definitely, I love to have people come back on. So I definitely want you to come back on whenever you have the opportunity. But I have two questions that I always ask people toward the end. Is one, where people can find you in terms of social media. And like I said earlier, the network is on in 150 countries thereabouts, and definitely all 50 states. So we love to hear people's message of positivity and hope, not just for our people, but for the global community, particularly at this time that we're in the middle of, when we're in the middle of this pandemic and the climate crisis and a number of other things. So any message of hope and positivity that you would like to leave folks, I'm sure that they would love to hear that and how folks can reach you. And like I said, I would definitely extend the invitation for you to come back on anytime that you want to share more about the book as it continues to get developed, and hopefully the movie project that you're working on about your father will get done and we can help you make that happen.
All right. Well, I love the dinner party. The dinner party is amazing. I definitely come back. You can find me on social. You can Cougar Sims. I'm Cougar Sims on Twitter. Not much action there, but I'm there. Cougar Sims on Instagram. You want to look at a few pictures? I'm there. If you want to meet me, Oliver Sims at Facebook, Los Angeles. There's you're going to have some conversation. My website is cougarsims.com. You go to cougarsims.com. You can meet me there. And so that's the best way. And then also LinkedIn, Oliver Sims, and LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is very professional. I like LinkedIn. I met a lot of good people. And the stories there are just more inspiring on LinkedIn, But my home is Facebook. I get to see my friends grow. I get to tell more of the stories. Where on Instagram, you show 2 pictures and like, what's that? You're just bragging. But Facebook, I get to tell, hey, this is behind the scenes. This is what's going on. Look where we're going from here. So that's where I'm at there. The book is called Introducing Ali Tamale. Introducing Ali Tamale is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere digital you want to go, is there to go. All right. It's wide open now. My positive thing is it's wide open. Believe in yourself. Market yourself. Dig down in. Find your craft. Make it as dope as possible. And then go tell the world. You don't have to tell the world all at once. You go one by one, and it builds. And that's my goal. Just get out there, let a few people know. They tell a few people, they tell a few people. But if you just stay there, nobody will come to you. I'm sorry, that's not how it works. You have to get out there and be your own advocate.
No doubt about it. Appreciate that. I think we're going to close out this segment with a little bit of music from none other than John Coltrane. So I'm going to play this video from John Coltrane, and we'll get on out of here with this music, and you'll see that playing before I hit the end broadcast. So we're going to hear a little bit of John Coltrane's In a Sentimental Mood.